I'm about 95% certain these came from Doug and Stacy of Off and Grid Living, so definitely go check out their channel. I'll link it down below. And I guess it's kind of a little redundant that I'm wearing a belt and suspenders. I believe it's bad fashion for men. Normally you'd never wear suspenders with a belt, but you know what? Who gives a f? All right, I'm gonna start working on the rest of the 4-inch pipe, so let's begin. So we got the two 4-inch lines. And come up here. We got a nice little 45 and then kick down right up to the roof here. So that line 45's up to where the center gutter is going to be, or the center downspout. And then we'll have one right on the end right here. So these suspenders here weren't actually from Doug and Tracy of Off Grid Living. They said that they sent me something, so I thought that it might have been what they sent. But it's actually from a subscriber who's building his own tiny house, and I believe he's gonna be parking it in Tennessee. And his name's Wes. So thank you very much, Wes, for these suspenders. I love them. All right, so I put a cap on the end of those 4-inch lines there, just so that we're not gonna get any dirt into them or anything like that. What I think I'm gonna do is, once the gutter is up, I think I'm gonna leave the trench open for now. And the reason why I'm gonna do that is we're gonna get the gutter up, I'm gonna get the rest of the 4-inch lines piped into the downspouts there. And then what I'm gonna do is actually fill up the pipes with water and just make sure that there's no leaks or anything like that. Just because if there was a leak in any of the, at any of the joints or whatever, man, that would be really tough to figure out exactly where it is. So there's no immediate reason that I need to like backfill it in today or anything like that. If I do it a week from now, that's totally fine. There's no issues with that. But I just want to make sure that there's none of the joints or anything that are leaking, just because there's so many joints. And if one of them happened to have like a very small leak in it, then it would just waste so much water over time. So I just want to make sure before I fill everything back in that we're good to go. So what I think I'm going to do here on this end here is build almost kind of like a, I don't even know what you'd call it, but I'm gonna dig out some of the dirt below here, cover this up with gravel just right in this area here, and then when I backfill the dirt on top of here to maybe bring it up to this level, is I'll use some large landscaping rocks to just kind of hold the dirt in place so that it doesn't want to kind of like erode down here, and then it kind of blocks off this area where the clean out is. I don't know, maybe once a year or something like that, maybe just to check and see if there's like a lot of dirt or sediment in the bottom here. But it would only be once a year, just because to fill these lines up with water, it would take a considerable amount of water. And the water that does come out of here, I did have the idea that on the end of the clean out here, I could just drill a hole and put a small spigot, because actually on these tanks I have 3 extra 3/4 inch spigots that would just hook up to your regular garden hose. So I could just hook it up to the end and then just drain the water out using a garden hose, and I could put it into a bucket and, you know, pour it on our plants or something like that. Like, who knows? I just like to have that option just so that it would be a little bit easier to drain these out, and then I could also use the water for something rather than it just flowing down here and not really being used to the best of its ability. I don't know exactly how much water it's gonna take to fill these up. Maybe some of you can figure it out. So we have a 4-inch line that's going 150 feet at least. and there's 2 of them. So there's over 300 feet of pipe at 4-inch in diameter. So I don't know exactly how many gallons of water that would be, but it's gonna be quite a few gallons of water that's gonna be in each line. All right, so I'm just gonna screw this back on, and what I'm gonna do now is just get a couple buckets of gravel. I'm just gonna dig out a little bit underneath here, put the gravel there, and then I think that's pretty much it that I'm gonna do for today. I mean, I could start backfilling some of the dirt. Like I said earlier, I don't want to backfill just yet, just because, I mean, there's a lot of joints down here that could possibly leak. So I'd just rather just kind of make sure before it gets backfilled. What the f is my neighbor doing over there? He's tinkering around with something. 3 of the main building blocks for permaculture based stuff: rock, gravel, and wood chips. The other one would be the ability to move dirt to where you want. We got the tractor, so we can do that. Before I left for LA, we actually had about 10 tons of wood chips out here. So we had 2 full truck deliveries, but I moved a lot of them up to in our fenced-in area and around some of the trees that we trimmed. I wanted to show on a video, but I was just so strapped for time that I couldn't make a video about it. But yeah, the wood chips, man. Yeah, it was like crazy. There were so many wood chips over here. It was awesome. And you wanna know how much I paid for those wood chips? Technically $0, because I gave the guy a $20 tip for bringing them out here. Anyways, I'm just gonna fill these buckets up with some gravel. And I think we originally had 10 tons, so we got it when we were doing the fence posts. And so we got 10 tons of gravel and then 15 tons of the landscaping rock, which I think it's gonna be really useful when we're doing the swales and that kind of stuff. We're probably gonna have to get more. It sounds like a lot, 15 tons, but I can see it's going through this amount of landscaping rock and this amount of gravel actually pretty quickly. Oh yeah, by the way, when I'm usually driving the ATV, I don't drive around like an idiot. I was just doing that just for fun for the camera. So for all you safety Sallies out there, I'm not usually going 30, 40 miles per hour down my own driveway. Doesn't always happen, all right? I'm usually going like 10, 15, 20, and I usually don't go crazy because yeah, these things are freaking dangerous and I don't wanna crack my head open, and I'm not gonna wear a helmet while riding this on my property. If I was like going like proper like ATVing, then I'd probably wear a helmet, but just around here, like I'm literally only going like 10 or 12 miles per hour most of the time. One more quick little aside. We do have a garbage service out here. I think it's like 24 bucks a month or something like that, but we're not that far out in the middle of nowhere. So we do have garbage. So to give you a quick little visual representation of how this is gonna work passively just through gravity, I'm just gonna kind of explain things. So the gutter on the roof is located on an elevation wise, it's about 2 feet above the top of the tank. So the gutter is right about here. And you might not, if you look up the hill, you might not really be able to see that. But because the inlet is higher than where the outlet is, basically what's going to happen is when we get the first rains, the water is just going to fill up this pipe. We might not actually get any water into the tanks, but once we finally get these pipes filled with water, it's going to be filled up to right at this point here, because any extra water is just going to overflow into the tank there. So basically, once we get 1 liter of water at the top, it's going to push 1 liter of water from this pipe, like right at the top here, into the tank. So this type of system is called a wet system. It's not a dry system because this pipe is always going to have water in it unless I empty it out myself. So it's nice to be able to do something like this, but it's also dependent on your climate. Say if you had a wet system in a more northern climate, you'd have to empty the water out. Like say you get like really bad freezing temperatures, you'd have to empty the water out, or else it's just gonna burst all of your pipes. But since we do get some freezing temperatures, for those of you that don't know, water freezes at 32 Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius. I've asked a few Americans, I'm like, do you know what the freezing temperature is? And they don't even know, but it's 32 Fahrenheit. So this 4-inch pipe, since there's such a volume of water, it's much more difficult for it to freeze than say you had like a small little 1/2-inch line. So this pipe is still gonna have water in it, and it's gonna be exposed to the minor freezing temperatures that we'll have. Like it does get into the mid-20s overnight, so maybe like -4, -5 Celsius, but it only might be for a small period of time during the night, just during the winter, but the rest of the year it's totally fine. But since the pipe is so big, it's a big 4-inch pipe, there's a much less likely chance that it's actually gonna freeze. We'd have to have like freezing temperatures for an extended period of time. But typically what happens when it does go into the mid-20s for the day, it's getting well above 32 for the high for the day. So it'll be probably usually in the mid-50s or maybe the low 60s. That's one reason why we can do a wet system, and I won't have to drain this out during the winter. But in other climates, like if you live in Canada, like most parts of Canada, or if you live in northern parts of the United States and you get like prolonged periods of freezing, then you'd have to empty out the water. There's other ways of doing rainwater harvesting that you'll see, like for example off the awning and off the tiny house roof. Like that's going to be called what is like a dry system. So the water will just naturally just flow from the roof into the gutter, down the line into the cistern, but the water is not going to be staying in the pipe going to the cistern. So it's just going to go in there, and then that's what's called the dry system, and this is what is called a wet system. So I hope that makes sense, and if you fancy my suspenders, give this video a thumbs up. And if you want to send me some interesting clothing items like these suspenders, by all means. Keep in mind that this channel is family friendly, so nothing like with penises or tits on it, nothing like that, but there's a very good chance that I would wear it in a video. And I'll leave our P.O. Box address in the description box below. Awesome, thanks so much for watching guys. I'll catch you on the next video. Talk to you soon.